So I'll just kick off so we can have our cameras on. So my name is Ben Yoa. Wherever you're watching me from, I'm in the city of Lagos. And we are currently streaming live. We are streaming on YouTube, we're streaming on Facebook. And we intend this to be watched globally. We intend that a lot of people would get a lot of insights from what is happening in the space of AI as it relates to Nigeria. So this event and this session is facilitated by Vatebra Limited. Vatebra is a foremost software company in Nigeria. This year, September this year, Vatebra became 20 years. Formerly used to be known as Fleet Technologies. Now Vatebra has been responsible for quite a number of technology solutions that happen both in the public and private sector. Vatebra is also in Kenya, Vatebra is in Ghana, Vatebra is also in Sierra Leone and the Gambia. And I currently manage the brand and communications team for Vatebra Limited here in Lagos, from Lagos, Nigeria. So I'll give everybody the honor of introducing themselves. We're going to start with Okpeyemi Fabiyi. So please quickly introduce yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben, for that introduction. Hi, everyone. My name is Fabio Okpeyemi. I'm super pumped, super excited to be joining everyone here to share my experience. I currently work as a senior data consultant with Data Culture. Data Culture is a data consulting firm based in New York. And what we basically do is we help organizations in their journey of becoming data-driven. You may be wondering, what does it mean to be data-driven? It basically mean making decisions not from just gut feeling, but leveraging data to make decisions. So I basically lead from data strategy down to implementing infrastructure. And prior to then, I also had a bit of experience working with Carrywise as a data scientist and also data analytics consultant with Deloitte. So in terms of experience on data, AI, machine learning, I kind of have a bit of extensive experience relating to that, which I'm looking forward to sharing some experience and how that relates to the Nigerian ecosystem.
Thank you, Okpeyemi. That's awesome. Good to know you more. So we are going to talk to our doctor, Dr. Victor Odumiwa. Good morning, doctor. Can you do us the honor of introducing yourself?
Good morning, Ben. Yeah, good morning, everyone. I am Dr. Victor Odumiwa from the University of Lagos, a faculty in computer science, and an AI researcher, as well as a developer as well. And I also direct a tech innovation hub in the University of Lagos, that's the NISTA IT hub, which is NITHub. You can check up online. And I'm also a principal investigator in the IDRC-funded AI researches for education to enhance education in Africa, which comprises of a consortium of 2 universities, University of Lagos and Abome Calavi University in Benin Republic, and also Data Science Nigeria. We have done several researches and also built projects on AI. So I'm happy to be here and to share with my co-panelists and also with our participants. Yeah, good morning.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Doctor. Kolapo Gugbile, let's have you introduce yourself, sir. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
All right, perfect. Yeah, thank you, Ben. It's great to be here, and good morning, everyone. Good morning, Doctor, and good morning, Fabi. Yeah, and of course, good morning, Ben. Yeah, so my name is Kolapo Ogunbile. I work with Vatebra Tech Hub. It's an innovation hub based in Lagos. We are set up to drive the innovation ecosystem in Nigeria. And we are doing that in partnership with the Bank of Industry. We have hubs in Lagos, Kebbi, Kaduna, and Bayelsa. And I also have a podcast that I run. It's called Curious K. I'm an AI enthusiast. Recently, I had like a series on AI. I've had conversation on AI ethics, and problems startups can solve using AI, how startups can also take advantage of these technologies. So I'm happy to be here to share, what I've learned from people. And I believe this will be a wonderful conversation. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you, Kolapo. So we're going to kick off quickly. I want Doctor to, one of the very germane areas of AI is the bias of it. we've seen over time that a lot of people are biased about AI. They have this fear. So, Doctor, I want you to just let's open the floor. Let's open the ground let's give us an insight into what AI bias is and why is it a critical concern in AI development and how it can be mitigated.
Well, okay, thank you, Ben. But there are two things in what you mentioned. AI bias, the one you mentioned, people being biased, that's one. There's also bias in AI in terms of data and other things. So there are two different things, so I will separate them. So people being biased about AI or being skeptical, let me use that word, about AI is a different thing. Some people are afraid, some thinking to take jobs from them, some thinking this thing will create a terrible thing in the future that I cannot control it. Of course, every technology has its own fears. I mean, people fear technology, I mean, especially when it starts and they can see what it can do. They're afraid of how are we going to control this, that in the future it doesn't turn to something else. So it's always there. But I don't advocate that kind of fear. What I would say is we need to have proper regulation as things are evolving so that, I mean, there could be control. And when we are going beyond the boundaries, I mean, you can have government, I mean, controlling things so that human beings can still be humans and can still move on as a society. So that's what can be done with that. But we should not fear technology in the sense that what it can do, because actually technology has changed our lives since man was created. And if not for technology, we will not be where we are today. And here are we talking online, not meeting physically, and kind of working virtually. And thanks to technology, that's what it's giving us. Now coming to bias in AI. Bias is because AI depends on data, it feeds on data. And once data is biased, the result will be biased. And what does that bias mean? Bias could be in terms of you're getting data from some specific context, not in all context. And you want to use the solution you are getting, the models you train, now to make decisions for people from other contexts, that their context was not taken into consideration in the data you are using to train your AI models. And that creates a problem, because that means one way or the other, you are already, you are not speaking to them, you are making them to kind of accept what other context decides for them. Do you understand? So that that context can be defined in different ways. Somebody used an example at the time. He said, if you go to ChatGPT or go to, and you say, how do you greet somebody, another in Africa? It will tell you to shake the person's hand, whereas in our context, you don't greet that way. So you understand? So if someone that depends so much on those tools as a young person growing and believes everything being said by the tool, then that's going to be a problem, because you have cultural issue as it grows up in his community. Yeah, so the bias has been introduced in the data that was used to train those models, and he's learning without questioning those things he or she's saying. So that's one of the things we're looking at, some of those bias based on the data, the information that those models, those systems are using to inform their learning. Yeah.
Okay, so Doctor, I'm still going to stick with you for some minutes, because I know that it took a lot to bring you to this session, and I know you have other engagements. So I want you to also, one thing that we realized lately is that we've seen foreign governments, pull together top tech, big tech entrepreneurs and CEOs to talk about this same ethics and bias in data. So how can AI practitioners and organizations ensure responsible AI? This is the core right now. AI can be used to do so many things. So how can they ensure responsible AI development and deployment?
Okay. Well, bias can be in different dimensions. Yeah. Ethics is another thing very important. Yeah. So what I will say, let me focus more on our own continent. I want to say that I have a reason for saying that, we have problem because we don't generate our data. We don't have content for our continent and also in our languages. And for me, instead of even just talking about policy, the first thing that government should do in this part of the world is to massively invest in data generation. We will be nowhere. You can train talent if we don't invest in that. And you see, being a researcher, I've seen different funding bodies funding data generation. I mean, different internationally. Why are they doing it? They need it. Facebook has done it. There's Lacuna Fund that is doing it. They need the data. But how many people who will fund the data generation in Africa? So they may support, but you put where your treasures are, that's where your mind will be. So do they generate the bulk of their money from here? Not really. So we need to focus, if we want to develop, a lot on data. And when we have more of the data in our own context that are capture our content, then when they are training their models, they can use our data. And so I'm not saying the data alone will solve the problem of bias, but it's going to actually eliminate a lot of bias. There will still be some other problems. So we need that. Then as a government, we also need to begin to formulate policies that can help and say, okay, if you are doing AI, we want explainable AI, that's another thing. We don't want just black box. We want explainable AI. We want to understand what is running your machine, what is making you to take this decision. Because for example, if you go to ChatGPT and you put things, it talks to you as if it's confident, as if it's so sure of what it's saying. Even when it's spitting error out, it's still talking to you convincingly, you understand? So how can we have a system that like that will tell me what I'm telling you, I'm only sure it's only 25% correct. So I'm not sure of its correctness because I'm saying this based on what I know, and I can only guarantee that this is 30% correct, not just take it the way you're saying it. So can you tell me how he came to his conclusion? So can we have explainable here? So those are things. So policy should be formulated around this, especially when it comes to some key sectors and areas where you don't want any. In fact, that any mistake can lead to death and can create a lot of problems. So health sector, other sector, you want to be so sure. So government can begin to have policy framework to be able to kind of evaluate what is being done by different organizations, and then kind of be able to know where sanctions should be placed and when things should be kind of banned. And also, like I mentioned earlier, which is so key and which I am advocating for, is let our government invest in data generation. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. So I'll be going straight to my brother in the building, Opeyemi Fabi, the machine learning man, the data man. We've heard Doctor talk a lot about data. Now let's go into machine learning. Let's look at the areas of hyperparameters in machine learning. What exactly are these? Let's just water the ground with that. Like, we want to open up our Facebook with machine learning and understanding the hyperparameters of it.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be on the same panel with Dr. And interestingly, Dr. was actually part of people that also attended my Facebook account at Data Science Nigeria. So I'm so honored to be on the same panel with him.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, so just as Dr. has rightly said, which is very, very important, garbage in, garbage out. When the data is bad, trust me, there's nothing you are modeling. ChatGPT and amazing technology we have today are built because they've trained all of those systems on the right data set, right? And Doctor also in his earlier statement talked about developed country actually investing a lot in data, because you understand that when they get it right in data, it becomes very easy for this technology to do a lot of things. So let's now bring it into the context. What exactly is machine learning for those that don't understand? So machine learning is basically, from the word machine is learning. So it is basically saying a system that's able to mimic the way humans would do things. And how are they able to do that? I use context of a child, or as humans. As humans, we're able to make decisions now because of all the experience we've gathered over the years, either from reading books, either from our experiences and different form of education, right? But in the context of a system, a machine don't need to go through all of those systems. They basically just need the right information fed into them. So all you just need to do is supply information into the machine, and the machine will be able to learn and say, okay, fine, last year this was what the number looked like, 3 years ago this was what the number looked like, and based on that pattern that the machine has learned, the machine will be able to tell you that, oh, this is what the number will look like 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line. And that's basically the idea of machine learning. So the machine learning is basically saying, how can you make a system learn how to identify pattern without not necessarily telling it explicitly? And that's what traditional programming will say, okay, fine. If it's A or B, do C. If it's C or D, do this. That's what the normal traditional programming is. But from the context of machine learning, you don't necessarily have to give it all the rules that apply and say, oh, when you see an inflow that is greater than say 1 million naira, flag it as fraudulent, or when you see an inflow that is greater than this, flag it as that. But from the context of machine learning, you basically leverage all the insight, all the pattern that it has gathered from the past data that it has been fed into. And that's why the concept of investing heavily on the right kind of data is very, very necessary. And that's why it's almost like the field of AI will still be in the nascent state, thanks to the likes of Data Science Nigeria, and driven by the likes of Dr. Victor, that is helping to drive that. We need indigenous data to make AI thrive, because if those things are not available, we only keep leveraging data that are used in developed countries, which are not basically indigenous to us. And that's why, based on what Doctor said, you always have this system that are biased because they don't understand our context, because they've not been trained on our context. They don't understand what it means. So that's why if you tell that ChatGPT, how do you greet in Yoruba, I may not necessarily know, unless probably it has been fed with data from our own context. And that's basically what machine learning is. You basically pick information, you learn from information that has been supplied to it, which information in this instance is data, and data is contextual. So you can talk about financial data, you can talk about agricultural data, depending on the domain you want to provide solution, you want to leverage machine learning solutions. So based on the data that is supplied into the system, it automatically by itself, based on the algorithm, identify patterns, identify insights, and the pattern that it has identified will now be able to help it to make informed decision about what the future will look like. And that's just what machine learning, and there are different types of machine learning technology I won't dive into now.
Okay, so still with you on this. I want us to, let's go deeper here.
Okay.
Let's look at the concept of deep learning. Let's go to deep learning, which is also a subset of AI. Let's look at artificial neural networks. How do they model complex data with these ANNs? So
when you talk about deep learning, so deep learning is basically is a subset of, like you said, machine learning. And the whole idea of deep learning is the matter of, when you talk about classical machine learning, they are trained on large amount of data. But when you start talking about large corpus amount of data, where the classical machine learning may not necessarily be able to train on them. So you need more sophisticated algorithm to be able to help you train those kind of data sets, right? And that's why we talk about the likes of deep learning. And an example will come in, say, talk about image classification. So what do I mean image classification? So you want to say, oh, you have some set of image, you want a system to be able to help you classify, so you can find what type of image have I supplied to this? Or you will talk about voice, right? How do you be able to identify this particular voice? Now, I know you already know about an example called deepfake, where someone can actually talk like you, even though you're not necessarily the one that's making those audio pronunciation, right? Now, those complex kind of application that leverage what is called unstructured data. So unstructured data will come in form of images, will come in forms of audios, and different types of unstructured data. So when you have unstructured kind of data that you want to train on, you want to be able to do some sophisticated kind of application, you can leverage the classical machine learning where you majorly just do unstructured data, rows and column and all of those things. So when you have unstructured kind of data, like I mentioned, you need sophisticated algorithm, and that's where the likes of deep learning comes in. So when you talk about artificial neural network, there are a lot of neural network algorithms. So depending on the application, you have what is called computer vision that relates to things from videos and all of those things. And also talk an application of the likes of GBT, which is an application of one deep learning, which is called natural language processing that relate to text. So depending on the use case that you want to basically solve, on the complexity of the problem will let you determine what type of algorithm, what type of deep learning algorithm you want to use, whether you are going into the application of computer vision, you are going to the application of natural language processing, which are like the two major classification of deep learning algorithm, basically.
Okay, thank you. I'm actually getting a lot of insights from the 4 answers we've gotten thus far. Well, let's move to Kolapo. Kolapo, are you there with us?
Yes, Ben.
Yeah, so I thought we were going to have you on video.
Yes, I'm switching because of like the network here, but I will get back on. So.
Okay, so let's quickly have you on. Let's look at still on deep learning. Let's look at what can you help us with some kind of concept on backpropagation and its role in training neural networks, you know? And also, if you also want to also look at architecture and use case of current neural networks and all that. So let's have your insight on this.
All right, yeah, Ben, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely, we can.
All right, yeah. So, I mean, those questions are quite very technical for me, you know, in terms of my background in AI. So I wouldn't want to go deep into that because I'm not too, you know, comfortable talking about those very, very technical aspect of AI. I'm a bit more comfortable, you know, in terms of maybe what startups or businesses, you know, can do leverage on how they can leverage this innovation, and I can also touch points in terms of the bias, right, which is like the unfair or discriminative outcomes that can result from using this technology, right? So let me just touch on that briefly. All right, so I mean, I was having a conversation recently, you know, and someone said, I mean, I think there was a case where maybe like an AI was used to like judge a case, you know, in the US, for example, you know, and US has a history of maybe discriminating against maybe the minority community or the Black community, right? And imagine, which is like emphasizing what Dr. Nfabi said in terms of like the data points, right? So imagine training like an AI robot, you know, on maybe hundreds of cases, you know, that are biased against Black people, for example. I mean, what do you expect that kind of AI or the kind of output that kind of AI is going to give? It's definitely going to be biased. So, I mean, these are my thoughts basically in terms of maybe what can be done, you know. Funding is very, very important, right? When the founder of ChatGTP was in India, for example, and I mean, he did it, I think it was in Nigeria briefly too. And when he was in India, you know, someone there said they're going to build a technology that is bigger or better than, you know, ChatGTP. And the guy said, no, they can't. They don't even have the resources. You know, they don't have the money. All right. So we're talking about how powerful this technology is, what they can do, how they can transform the world. It's also important to know that there is limit to what can be done if there is no funding. You know, how many funding do we have that is basically focused on research in Nigeria? Even if that is not for AI. You know, let's even think about maybe traditional technologies. All right. So we don't even have that culture. So I think it's important for us to bring this conversation to the front border. All right. So that, you know, influential people in the society, not necessarily the government, all right? Even companies like Vatebra, you know, can start maybe curating or pulling a fund specifically focusing on universities, for example, maybe focusing on Unilab, you know. So I think it's important for us to have that conversation and bring in people, you know, that can drive it in terms of the funding, which is very critical. So what can we do? How can we connect the dots? We have a very huge base of maybe people in the diaspora, for example, you know, that are very passionate about what is happening in Africa. How can we connect that dot? All right. There is also a lot of conversation happening around blockchain technology that how many people even know? If you go out of the streets now and ask people, do you know what is blockchain? I can bet you maybe you talk to 100 people, nobody's going to know, or just one out of the 100. We are talking about AI right now. How many people out there even understand what AI is? Maybe 1 or 2% of the population. So there is a lot of education, you know, that has to be done. So essentially, I mean, just to round off my thoughts, is that it's important for us to start thinking in terms of innovative way to bridge the gap, you know, and create a pipeline of funding that can drive research. That is the only way African can lead, or even African businesses can lead, you know, in this technology. OpenAI, ChatGTP, they have APIs and stuff. I mean, to use those APIs, I have to pay. All right. Even if I build my business model leveraging on their data, maybe to solve financial problem or whatever issues or health challenges or whatever issue I'm trying to solve, there can be a point they will start charging me and I won't be able to afford it, right? Because I don't even have the cost to build this technology from scratch. All right. So I just think it's important to really think about this critically, so that, I mean, we won't be left behind. You know, they're saying Africans, the last frontier. All right. I mean, the second industrial revolution, the third industrial. This is AI now. This is a new technology. How can we really lead that back? Thank you very much. So those are just my thoughts around that.
Awesome.
Ben. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, and that was very outstanding. Okay, so we are back to Doctor now, and we have Doctor. We've seen the real-time application of natural language processing in terms of email filtering, language translation, smart assistant, document analysis, online research, predictive text, and all that. I want you to, from your own experience, how can we apply this further in Nigeria, in Africa as a domain, based on everything you have done in the tech community for Nigeria?
Okay, thank you. I will start from, just to help people to understand, from even your previous question, when you talk about backpropagation, all those kinds of things, I will just say some few things. You know, this thing said about AI is not strange in the sense that if you understand how human learns, then you are fine. How do we learn? When you are learning, they will teach you some things. You may need to face an exam and you write some things, or you are doing classwork and your teacher will look at it and say it is wrong. Your question will be, why did I get it wrong? So you are going back to where you started from. So the same thing with AI. You show AI some things, that is what this thing means, and to tell you, okay, this is how I see it. And you say you are wrong. So backpropagation, you go back. You want to understand what made you to be wrong. That's where we learn. And that's what I've been doing in machine. That is how to help machine to learn from the data. Because machine does not understand anything. But you will train it, it may say rubbish, but you not try to show you why what you said is rubbish. So you now see why you made a mistake. And that's how the concept of optimization comes in. You see why he's making a mistake. You calculate his error, loss function, try to understand what made him to make a mistake, and change his parameters to be able to understand better. And that's what is happening. So it's just a bunch of some equation mathematics, and you run it for a long period or a short period based on the machine you have, the power of the machine. And it begins to understand, okay, if I see this, I don't say this, because if I say this, it's wrong. So when I see this, this is the way to interpret it. It learns it all from the data you're giving to it. So it's a way of the way we learn. We correct you when you are learning, and when you make mistake, we tell you this is a mistake. When you get it right, oh, you're getting it right. Oh, you're getting it right, but you're not perfectly correct. And you begin to adjust in your brain until you master a subject. That's just the same thing, programming AI. Now coming to how can we apply it? There are several applications. Several applications. There are so many things we are wasting time about in this part of the world that can be done. Number one, we have a problem with ICT. So let me just put it that way. You are shouting AI, but we are not even solve the fundamental problem of ICT. Communication, network, that one's a big problem. How can I take, okay, we are doing some projects, some research, that we're trying to build something on language to kind of automatically generate learning content in local languages. When I do it, and I'm saying I want to apply it to out-of-school children in the North, where would they get internet to use what I'm doing? So there's a fundamental thing to be solved, which is about electricity, access to devices, and access to internet. So that is, very key. If you don't solve that problem, only a subset, the bias will still come in the sense that only a subset of people that are enabled will be able to use AI and advance, why the majority will still not be able to use it. Because that's a bias not in data analysis, bias in what? In the kind of environment to provide for people. So that will still come back to that. So now, let's assume that everything is perfect. There's internet, there's device, we have devices, people can connect, and everything is in place. What can it solve? Let's start from education. Personalized learning, where the system, as you're using the system and AI-enabled learning platform, it begins to understand the reason why I'm making some mistakes and begin to recommend content or things that adapt to the pattern you are seeing from your behavior. It makes your learning fast. In fact, people are using ChatGPT and other variants people are building as a personal assistant in learning. Like I want to remember another Nigerian that was studying, doing his postgraduate in Europe. I forgot he built something. What he did was, okay, let me train this model or fine-tune it. If I'm using the right language now, I'm talking about large language model. Fine-tune this thing based on my textbooks, on the materials for my course. So that when I have any issue, I'll just type the question. He will answer me correctly based on the subject I'm studying and the concept I'm having issue with. And you can imagine how fast that will be in learning. He's not going to be looking for a teacher to ask questions from. He's going to, even though the answer may not be 100% perfect, but if it is like 90% perfect, it resolves its knowledge anomaly at that particular point in time, and it can make progress faster. So we have it being used in education. And apart from education, look at all the people we put on the road, VIO, this and that, all those ones, and they're creating a lot of problem for us because what? They will stop you. At times you see the way they will stop you on the road. You can even cause an accident because the way they will stop you. What about we have cameras and we have using computer vision? Most of the offenses on the road can be automatically detected. You can keep driving and you go. They will just come and pick you in your house and tell you that this is what you did. They will show you of course, human being cannot go to all those images at having like millions of cars. But the machine has picked to things that are having problems. That okay, somebody has committed an infraction, this is what he did, and they cannot go and look at that video and see. But the machine has helped them using AI to know that this offense has been committed. And they cannot go look at the real video and see it and go and pick the person up. So you can see how it will reduce the problem we have, how it makes life easy. And also this even down for that will just park anywhere and nobody can talk. So there are several use cases, even in Africa, that can help us, but we have to solve the fundamental problems. If we're going to do it, I mean, we are talking about 5G must really be 5G. When you have also cameras, if you want to do a smart city, you know the number of cameras you need. And the communication also must be very efficient for those data to make sense. And the processing, because you're talking about a lot of processing power, to process the data in near real time and get results that can help you to make decisions. So a lot of application areas. Let me stop here for that to add to.
Thank you, Doctor. And as you were speaking, some things just popped up in me. So this session was supposed to be an hybrid session. We're supposed to have it both online and the physical space. But as we put out all the registration form and everything out there was a really low turnout. And it has to do with how you started your last question. Are we even really ready for ICT first? So the people are not really looking at AI. They're not, there was a time when you tell people become a software developer, they'll be like, they want to do the easy stuff. But right now, a lot of people are now looking at, software developer, that guy is making money from it. I want to do it. Because of the AI, I want to do it. So for us having this conversation, I see us as the frontiers of this conversation in Nigeria, because literally people are not really talking about AI in Nigeria. A few people are using ChatGPT, but even for ChatGPT, AI was just like basically some kind of buzzword to a lot of people. It was just some, but people are not starting to see the real-time application, especially with what NLG and NLP is doing, natural language processing is doing with ChatGPT and all of that. So that takes me to my next question. Tokenization. This is for me. Tokenization. I want us to tell. I have done some research on tokenization, and I know that today the banking industry and some other kind of people in Nigeria, even in our fintechs, can start to use tokenization. Why are we not there? I want to just give us a background of tokenization first, then let's look at applications of it.
So when I talk about tokenization, so tokenization is basically like a concept in natural language processing. And the whole idea is basically saying that our system do not understand text. They communicate in numbers, they communicate in binary, ones and zero. Now, tokenization, you type into ChatGPT, you ask any question, you are typing, you are not communicating in the language of computer, 1 and 0, right? You are using human language. So the question now is, how do you make a system understand human language? So that means you need to find a way to convert whatever text that you are supplying to it. And don't forget, the system you are communicating has already learned, has been trained, just like we've been saying and what Doctor has explained, right? So one aspect on how to make the system understand the text you are communicating, what is called tokenization. And what it does is basically saying, it basically breaks down all the syntaxes, all the words that you have, find a way to break it into different chunks, and then convert it in a way that can be understood. And that basically means converting into a text into numerical form. Now, why do you have to do this? There are many reasons why you have to do this. One, like I said, for memory usage from the system perspective. And just as Doctor said earlier, we always talk about deep learning. It's interesting, like Doctor said, we probably are not ready because you've not saw the major issue in Nigeria before we start talking about AI system, because even training this system alone, training this AI system alone require massive computing resource, like massive computing resource. And that's why one of the ways in which you want to manage the resource so that you don't end up spending a lot of money, because you can't, your normal laptop may not necessarily be able to do it. You probably want to start using what is called cloud computing, a lot of resource online. So one way you want to manage resource and memory of the system you are using is to do what is called tokenization. You want to convert it into numbers so that it's very easy for the system to understand the language that you are communicating. And so another thing is just for standardization, right? You want to find it such that from bias perspective too, you know that when you tokenize it, you're able to do necessarily conversion, necessarily standardization in the format without going into technical details to support our audience. So the idea of tokenization is basically saying that, yes, I know that the system does not understand text, it does not understand ABCD. Computer understand binary, ones and zeros. How do I find a way to make the system understand my own letter, my text, my characters in the computer language? And that's what tokenization is doing. It's basically breaking all your words, all your sentences into chunks of word, finding ways to convert those texts into numerical formats that can be understood for different advantages that I mentioned, like standardization, for memory maximization, and also to enhance model performance, because it's much easier for you to train some system faster because it's tokenized. So that's just the whole idea of what tokenization is in simple terms.
Okay, so just to put some more context to tokenization. So for me, I know that for instance, we have data, especially financial data, that is very, very sensitive.
Yep. So
to break it down further, from my understanding of how the usage of tokenization goes, is that when you have such data and you want to encrypt it, you want to ensure that people don't get wind of that data, the AI tokenization tool plays in between there, whereby it changes that data to scrambled numbers that you don't, or you cannot make sense of. Only the machine can make sense of it. Every person who sees it can make sense of it, but the machine can make sense of that. This particular, let's say, hash at Y346 something is actually the credit card number or password to Ben Iyoa's GTB bank account, blah blah blah.
Okay, so I think you are missing it.
Exactly.
I
need that context. I need that context.
Immediately you asked the question earlier, I knew that was a problem. There are two different organizations. you are talking about the one in blockchain. So Dr. M is talking about the one in AI, about some machine learning.
So let's have that context defined. So for people who are novices, they should know that these are two different kinds of tokenizations, that the one in AI is just for the one in blockchain. So I think Doctor wants to give us that context.
Yeah, I read that right from the first question, so I knew it would be a problem. So
I give us that context.
Okay, yeah, so I'll just share my opinion and also allow Doctor to enter. So yeah, so the tokenization in machine learning, since the conversation was about AI and machine learning, that was why I just went straight into that. So yeah, so one thing about one AI application, which is what Doctor mentioned, one of his first questions was relating to regulation. Now, as AI advances, AI will continue to advance, but there needs to be regulation in place to at least mitigate some of the disadvantage that AI can cause. And one of the regulations that has been put in place relating to that is what is called data privacy, right? You talk about there are a lot of data ethics and data privacy in place. I won't go into all of details. So one of those applications is what is called anonymity of data. So which means that I should not be able to identify someone just by seeing their data. And there are different applications where it is very important. An example is health data. Now, somebody can sue an hospital if somewhere along the line they're able to see their data that, oh, just from some indication, maybe from their medical report, you can identify that this is this person that have that report. So that means such information are very, very critical. The same to also talk about your credit card that you mentioned earlier. It's very, very critical because if somebody is able to identify your credit card, they can use it and do some fraudulent transaction, right? So which is why, in order to avoid things like that, you want to do what is called masking or anonymizing your data, such that, yes, my name is Opeyemi Fabiyi, right? And there are different types of what is called PII. PII is called personable identifier information. So my name, my email, my phone number, and different type of PII information. So regulation says that, and that's why one regulation that's in place to protect customer relating to data privacy is what is called GDPR. So GDPR is the global data regulation, and there's also NDPR for Nigeria. So one of the regulations says that when it comes to customer data, as much as possible, you want to mask or anonymize private information. And anonymizing it basically means that people should not be able to see it and know that, oh, this is my name, and that's where you talk about hashing. So hashing or masking, whatever you want to call it. So even if you see it as strings of numbers, that doesn't make sense. But yes, the system can easily encrypt it. And that's why I start talking about encryption and decryption. The system can easily encrypt it and know that, okay, fine, this is my name. But to the human physical eye, they can't see it. And that's just basically trying to adapt to the regulation of data application in AI or different applications. So you can find, how do we protect customers? How do you protect our customer data in terms of their private, secure information? And that's basically what some of this application comes in. I'll allow Doctor to also add his own, Peter.
Yeah, Doctor, please, let's have
it's deep, and it's not something that can easily be explored. Like, I mean, it'll be explored in just a few minutes. So I'll just say that there are several things combined together. And one of the things happening in computing today is the field is growing, and many people are coming up with concepts, whether validated or not validated. So you hear words that at times may not, there are tokens being used, even API. When you are writing, you create tokens for security. So when I see you are sending a request to me, I see your token and I know that it comes from you, I can identify and be sure that this is coming from the right person. And those terms are being used in different technologies, different ways. So it's still about the concept of who owns something, how do we protect something, who should have access to something. It's all around that. And that can come in different ways. There are different ways they can talk about. Encryption has been on for years. How many years? People have been encrypted. Several encryption algorithms, right from the time of Caesar. We have Caesar's algorithm for encrypting. In those days when they go to war and he sends a message to his officers at the warfield, he encrypts the message. I don't want to go into that, like I told you, it's deep. So I don't want to go into all the theory and all the formula and all the equations, all those kind of things. Yeah, it has been since the time of Caesar. So encryption and all those things have been there, how to protect the message. And also when it's about talking, how to know how can you access the message? How do you have the right to access it? So when you encrypt something, you must have a key to be able to understand how to decrypt that. So let us not go too far into that because all the time. And we use the opportunity to mention there is a conference coming up in December in University of Lagos where we are talking about AI and blockchain for sustainable development of MSMEs. I think it will be a good one for people to join, to come and learn and also understand and see the kind of things going on. So I'm just saying because based on the conversation, I see a need for people to understand where AI and blockchain are meeting, the convergence and what is happening. And so those are things that can also help you to understand better what is going on. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you, sir. So Kolako, let's quickly hear your view on. I want you to, let's look at from the concept of what you have done in the past years. What are the applications that you think can help drive this industry? So you've been involved in a lot of tech innovations. You've been involved in a lot of, building ecosystems. You have been responsible for a lot of startups. Bring the context of AI into this over the years. What exactly have been done in AI from your perspective? And what do you think is possible moving forward? Because we are in a state where we now start to see the normal becoming too normalized. Like we don't just want to be reinventing a new startup is coming up and they want to do fintech again. What exactly? Just give us context from there.
Yeah, all right, Ben. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so like Doctor said, AI has been around for years, right? And most of these chat GTP, BAD, and all this form of generative type of AIs, I mean, chat GTP was launched in November, last year or sometimes late last year. And the conversation that kind of just blew up, the conversation around AI. And that is actually generative AI, right? And what that does is, to generate, maybe text or images or video or all those type of information for you. But there are other applications of AI. I think one very interesting example Dr. gave is when you're driving, for example, and you haven't renewed your roadworthiness, for example, or your car insurance. It happened to a friend recently. I think he was actually talking about this yesterday. I think he was going to Ikoyi. His roadworthiness, his insurance, and something had expired. Said he was coming back at night. He just got a test. I think he got fined like 40,000 naira. That happened like 2 days ago. All right. So that means there is that kind of technology already even happening in Lagos, in our nose, in Lekki, somewhere there. So that's the application in some ways that government can take advantage of this technology. In that case, it's going to increase revenue. All right. You can imagine how many traffic offense is happening like daily in Lagos. All right. And people pay. All right. But maybe 99% of that money is going into some people's pockets, and maybe 1% is going into government's purse, right? So even if you look at it from that aspect, I mean, that technology has a way to transform or increase revenue for government. But when you now think about startups, right, talked about generative AI, how can this help businesses, right? You can help businesses in so many ways. You can generate your business plan now in less than a minute. All right. I mean, you're thinking of a marketing strategy. You can generate that in the twinkle of an eye. All right. You're thinking of writing an email. You're thinking of writing a proposal. This technology can help you, improve your efficiency or improve your process, or make you better. But at the same time, you should also know that this technology, especially for generative AI, they hallucinate, right? They give you wrong information confidently, right? All right. So if you are not even sure of what you're doing, all right, and you just ask it to give you some recommendations, it's going to give you those recommendations, and it's going to write it in such a way that it's convincing. And if you're not careful, you can just speak that thing and dub in somewhere. We just be like, what are you saying? All right. So what I just explained is, even in using this technology, it's important for the user to have domain skills and domain experience when using this technology. In terms of what startups can do, I think businesses can leverage this technology, in their processes. I've talked about examples for government. I've talked about how businesses can use it in terms of improving their business processes. But in terms of other sectors, in terms of maybe technology, for transportation, in terms of maybe agriculture, the kinds of seeds that we need to plant, what is the ratio? How can we, in terms of maybe using drones, for example, UAVs, maybe to help the growth of maybe cassava, or some of these other crops in Nigeria. So there are different kinds of applications that AI can use. And one of the biggest problems we have in Nigeria, example, is power, right? You hear problem about the generating company, and the distribution companies, they are losing money because they are losing power in some ways. They can't really reconcile it. The question is, how can artificial intelligence come in, to help some of this to help solve, some of this problem in terms of where is the loss happening from? You have a community in Yaba, for example, and you understand the usage, of power in that community, but all of a sudden, the technology can be built in such a way that it can track some anomaly. Maybe there is just one location, maybe some guys are already mining Bitcoin somewhere, and they are not connected to the grid or to the meter, but the technology can be built in such a way that it can be able to detect those kind of, anomaly, and that can also help businesses to improve their processes. For fintechs as well, this can help in maybe solving problems when it comes to fraud. I mean, there are news about banks losing, billions, of naira, annually when it comes to fraud. There are customers complaining. I mean, these are AI can be a very, for example, if I don't use my card, maybe I've been using my debit card for the last 3 years or 4 years. There is a pattern in the way I use this card. Maybe I've been using this card in Lagos and Abuja for the past 3 years. And all of a sudden, my card is being used in Kano. All right. If a system is built, to be intelligent in that way, there should be a prompt, that flags something that, what is happening here? This guy, you've been using this card, in Lagos and Abuja for the past 5 years. Why is it that you're using it in Kano? All right. So those kind of things can be built, just to improve processes in the financial sector as well. We have a lot of examples in the health sectors, as well, for insurance claims as well, to be able to monitor trends, and so many other aspects of the economy.
Thank you. So we are going to round up now. But before we round up, I want Doctor to tell us about his job and AI. Does he see the future whereby AI will take his job? Because that's been the fear. Today we have predictive and generative learning and all that. I mean, it's also looking like it's coming to doctor's job. People are already learning using ChatGPT. So I want you to tell us.
Personally, I'm not even afraid, and I'm enjoying what is going on. And I will tell you something so that people can also learn. You have to understand the difference between a goal, an objective, and the process of getting it achieved. And that's what people need to understand. That will change a lot of things. And that's also why we're having disruption. In banking, what is the goal of banking? People need money. People want access to money. People want profit on money. It's not that people need a building to go to. So when fintech companies understood that, they changed the process and they disrupted it. Why do I go to school? I want to learn, get knowledge. And when I get knowledge, I want to apply it, solve problems, and make money. So it's not that I must be in classroom sitting down. It's not I must write on paper. The objective is to acquire knowledge and be able to use it. And so whether AI is one that is helping me or not, it's not what matters. It's that I can acquire knowledge and do it. Why am I a lecturer? Why am I teaching? I want to help people to acquire knowledge. I want to be able to design ways of learning. So my job, it cannot be taken over by machine. Machine can only take over some aspect of my job. I will readapt. I will keep helping people to know how to learn. And I will keep creating content. Not all content will be created. New knowledge I imagine. And content have to be created for new knowledge I imagine. So the only thing we need to understand is that machine will do what's already out there. Machine cannot do what is in the future that has no knowledge about. And so it means that as humans, don't sit down on what has already been done, look for what has not been done. And once you are thinking that way, you are not afraid. As machine is coming, you're only using that machine to even do what you need to do and make more money and also impact more life. So that's where I'll put it. So I don't see any fear. I see the fact that I'm going to be more productive and I'm going to focus on the essentials. I'm not going to be spending time on memorizing things. Machine can memorize better than myself. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doctor. So, what do you want to tell us so far about your works and this whole AI thing and how far you think it's going to go?
Yeah, I think Doctor has re-echoed my opinion too. Technology will continue to advance, but the interesting thing is technology cannot exist on its own. Technology still needs humans. So I basically see a world where there will continually be a synergy between technology and human. As an example, if you use ChatGPT well, you will see that there are instances where you supply some things and it will be wrong. You yourself know that this thing is wrong. You tell that, no, this is wrong. You not, oh, I'm sorry. You learn again and give you something else. So that should let you know that the system would always lack information, right? So it's going to be a world of synergy between human capability as well as technology. So which is why as professionals, whatever you're doing, you want to evolve as what Doctor said. Let the system do what the system know how to do best, which is memorizing and all of those things. Focus more on the aspect where the system will struggle, things like creativity, problem solving. That's the terrain of human, trust me. There's no way, which is why as technology is advancing, there are still some things they will still probably still struggle relating to it, things like creativity and all of those things. That's the terrain, that's what we are blessed with as humans. So as professional, yes, like doctor said, some aspect of our job will go, jobs that are repetitive in nature, and that's the terrain of machine. They can learn faster than human. So jobs that are repetitive in nature will go, but even much more, new jobs will emerge, and new jobs that will emerge will require the synergy of technology and human. So they will need people that understand the technology, that can train and direct the technology well for maximum productivity. So I actually don't see a trend like what doctor says. It's a matter of, as I see the technology evolve, I'll find a way to augment my learning towards making myself much more better.
So finally, I'll just put my own thoughts there also. For me, I'll just give a preamble of my career. I started in the advertising industry. And back in the day, that was around 2010 when I joined the ad agency. It was about advertising. And the people in the ad agency, they loved it. They called it traditional advertising. But along the line, social media came, social media marketing started evolving. The advertising agencies were scared. They first came with some kind of bias against digital and social media marketing. But for someone like me, what I did was to quickly start to learn digital and social media marketing. So as the shock came for the industry, a lot of agencies have died, even in Nigeria and globally. As the shock came into the advertising industry, digital marketing was already growing, which was technology. We don't want to, people are now, the pull and push effect. People are now seeing adverts on their phones. They are now seeing adverts on their computers. People are now buying goods direct online, not as against when they see it on the TV or radio or newspaper that the traditional agencies were used to. So at that intersection, a lot of changes started to happen. And today we now see that digital marketing, digital advertising, digital selling, online selling, and everything has to do with that sphere is growing, is burgeoning. And today we also have, that advancement even is now existing with AI. And I wrote an article on LinkedIn where I spoke about using AI for your marketing. And a lot of people don't know today that you can now become an AI marketer. And there are tools for you. For instance, there's predictive analytics. There are tools like AI predictive media buying, Node.io. You use Node.io, you can work with an organization doing predictive analytics for them. There's also automated lead generation. You can do automated lead generation using tools like science.com. You can also do automated customer management and retention using tools like Zoho, tools like Twilio, Begin, and Freshdesk. We also have retargeting, several areas using AI today in marketing. And people now need to know that they need to, doctor has to leave. Thank you, doctor. Thank you so much, doctor, for your time. I remember you have a meeting. Thanks a lot. And I would call you personally to invite you and also send our blessings to you. Thanks a lot. Yeah. So to round it up, in marketing, we also have AI and it's playing big. And like doctor said, and like Okwemi has said, rather than be scared of what AI or digital or tech is going to bring, try to lean towards the part where, the machine cannot do, and then you start to, today, even in AI marketing, whereby you have the platforms like Freshdesk, Salesforce, they still need people who would manage those platforms in AI marketing. So with that, I call it, I don't even have a pattern shot for us, and call it a day. Kalakwa, you are muted.
I was just talking. Sorry. All right. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Ben, for moderating the session. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I said it's been a wonderful session, and I've learned quite a lot from the wonderful co-panelists here. So, like you said, I think the most important thing is to stay curious, right? Irrespective of the field we are. Right, because there is new technology, things are evolving. The thing is, how can this technology help you in your role, in your career path or in your business, because there is always a way technology can be of value. All right, look for that positive side of the technology, because every technology, can be used by bad actors as well. But for you, look at the good side. How can this technology, benefit you? And, if you think what you're doing is repetitive, the thing is, how can you acquire new skills that are relevant? Great example is the AI marketing that you're talking about now. While some people are still stuck in traditional businesses, people are already using AI. At a point, AI is going to help in, I think maybe Mark Zuckerberg, they launched like AI meta chatbot or something yesterday or recently, where, you can have conversation with this very awesome, different personas, just to drive engagement. At the point, if you're seeing ads, you even be able to know why you are seeing those ads. So I mean, the technology is, it's moving very fast. I mean, even if you look at the VC space, companies are raising hundreds of millions of dollars. Recently, I think Techstars published a list of AI businesses that have been in their cohort and all that. So people are really betting on this technology, right? So the most important thing is to position, learn, and just adopt, the right path to your business or to your career. And I think we're going to come out better for it. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, Kolapo. Thank you, Dr. Victor Odumiwa from the University of Lagos. And thank you, Okwemi Fabi. You've been an amazing resource today. And we hope to do this again. We hope to continue to be at frontiers. And one thing I've learned thus far is that when these industries are burgeoning, Africa is actually a virgin land where you can actually lead the conversation, become an advocate. And what we have done today speaks so much to that. We want to see more newspaper articles. We want to see more of this conversation, because we know people are really not interested in AI. Out there, they are not. Universities are not interested. So many institutions in Nigeria are not even talking. They're not even doing anything. But we need to lead that conversation, because we are tech people, and we have to be at the forefront of having these conversations and ensuring that we start to use AI properly in Africa and in Nigeria. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Okwemi. Thank you, Kolapo, and thank you, Dr. Victor.
All right. Thank you, everyone. All right. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye. Yeah. Thank you.
Bye.